From the Opopco Studios in Oklahoma City, you're watching The Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson. He's Barry Trammell, and we're brought to you by Papa John's Pizza. You can go online right now and order your pizza at papajohns.com. Time for our inbox segment. We've got your email questions we're going to answer here on video. Let's get to it with David starting us out. He says, can't speak for the older generation, but arguably the Sugar Bowl was the best OU victory since 1947. In the current era, even more exciting than the 2008 Texas Tech win, which I attended. Wow, he can't speak for the older generation, but he's going back to 47, Barry?
Yeah. He also says arguably, so he opened the door. I'm going to argue with you. Fabulous victory, wonderful victory, monumental victory in New Orleans. But let's not get carried away. All the Sooner Magic wins over Nebraska in the 70s and 80s, Ohio State and the Uwe von Schamann kick in 77, the Penn State Orange Bowl, and then you get to 2000.
Week after week after week in 2000.
You might throw 3 games from 2000. At Kansas State when the Cats were #2 and OU was just fighting to get in the top 10. And then the 1-2 matchup with Nebraska that really ushered Oklahoma back to the national stage. And then the Florida State national title game. Alabama was great. But to quote Bob Stoops, OU football didn't come in just on a load of wood.
I don't know what that means, but they didn't, and they didn't ride out on a load of wood, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think you can go back to the 2000 season and say that those games that they won during the regular season were definitely bigger because you knew they were playing for a stake in the national championship game. I mean, that's a BCS era. You know, if you go undefeated, you got a chance to play for a title. So OU's playing with that in mind. I mean, yeah, this is a big victory in terms of, you know, letting the nation know Oklahoma hasn't slipped that much. Letting recruits know this is a place you want to come play. I get all that. But those games that they won in 2000, and that, you know, takes out some other games between then and now, you can't say that it was any bigger than that, just in terms of what stakes were on the line. And that's ignoring any Texas games, Barry. We didn't even talk about games down in
Texas.
Man, all right. Let's get back to the inbox. This one from Brian. Brian says, what if Todd Monken had stayed at OSU for one more year? Does OSU maybe go undefeated and have a great shot to play Florida State in the championship game? Is it likely that Monken is then up for better jobs like Louisville? Wow, Brian's going in the Wayback Machine here.
And you know what? He asked some excellent questions. I think three of OSU's losses, 2 of them at least, really questions about the game plan. West Virginia and OU, and really I think you can throw Missouri, all 3 of them. The Cowboys did not have a great game plan. And, you know, Mike Yurcich, he had an up-and-down first season as offensive coordinator. He had some games where his game plan was fantastic, Texas, Baylor particularly. But, you know, Todd Monken had it going with this offense. What would it look like if Monken had stayed? I think we can surmise clearly that OSU would have won some of those games that it lost. Would it have won them all? I don't know. But it's fun to think about, and I think Monken might very well have been up for a better job than Southern Miss.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, the bigger question in my mind is if Todd Monken is still the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma State, did they do what they did with the quarterbacks? I don't know the answer to that question because, frankly, I'm not exactly sure I understand who made what decision to start Clint Shelf in the opener, pull him quickly, go to J.W. Walsh. You know, if Todd Monken's the guy, does he say to Mike Gundy, Clint's our guy. JW doesn't throw it well enough. Or do they go down the same quarterback path? Because ultimately, as much as game planning, as much as play calling cost them in those games, like Barry said, it cost him, too, that J.W. Walsh was the quarterback at West Virginia and had a terrible day throwing it. He was basically who he was at West Virginia. You know, I don't know. That comes into play, too. We'll never have those answers. It's definitely fun to think about. All right, back to the inbox with John. He says, Texas had a chance to hire a proven head football coach, and they got a coach whose tenure has been built on one quarterback.
I have to disagree with John.
I totally agree with you disagreeing. Oh, my gosh.
Charlie Strong, I think, has an excellent track record. Yeah, his success these last 2 years at Louisville was with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. But Charlie Strong's a good coaching candidate before he went to Louisville. He was the defensive coordinator for Lou Holtz at South Carolina, the defensive coordinator for Urban Meyer at Florida, national title defenses he produced. So I think Charlie Strong had a very, very good track record. In some ways, he had the same track record as Bob Stoops. The difference was he was a head coach for 4 years at Louisville. Happened to be the 2 best years he had was with one great quarterback. Guess what? If you don't have good quarterback play, you're not winning. So that's sort of an automatic. I think he's a good, solid choice. I don't know how he'll do, but I don't have any problem with Charlie Strong's resume.
Yeah, you know what? That good quarterback, he was part of the coaching staff that recruited him. It wasn't like Teddy Bridgewater fell into Charlie Strong's lap and he said, oh my gosh, I've got potentially the best quarterback in the NFL draft in my program. They recruited him. So yeah, it was on the back of a really good quarterback, but it was his quarterback. So I'm not sure where that becomes not part of the equation. And by the way, if you're an Oklahoma fan, and you remember that last national championship game your team was in, how they got stuffed on the line, on the goal line several times? Yeah, that was Charlie Strong's defense. So I think he knows what he's doing. I think he'll be just fine at Texas. All right, lastly, let's go to Brian in the inbox, and he says, what a seismic shift in the narrative for OU and OSU football since the Justin Gilbert non-interception. What a great point, Barry.
It's an unbelievable point. Look at all that's happened. If Gilbert makes that interception, OSU's going to the Fiesta Bowl. Now, maybe they fall victim to Central Florida. I tend to think they would have beaten Central Florida. But you make that interception, you finish 11-1, you go to the Fiesta Bowl, you finish 12-1, you're ranked 4th in the country, 3rd in the country, 5th in the country, somewhere in there at the final poll. Meanwhile, the Sooners would go to the Cotton Bowl, maybe beat Missouri, maybe not. Either way, nobody would be too worked up, and nobody would say, OU is back. Trevor Knight is the greatest thing of all time. None of that would be going on. But now it is.
Well, and it's like last year, there was a little bit of a change in the narrative when Oklahoma didn't make the BCS. You know, if they make the BCS, chances are good they win that BCS Bowl. Instead, they go to the Cotton Bowl, and everybody thinks the house is on fire after they lose to Texas A&M and Johnny Manziel. So you just never know. But, yeah, when you think about what that near interception meant, wow, it's a lot to take in, but it would have been completely different for these two teams. Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.